On the subject of Stetson Bennett, so I was contacted on the call-in show uh, because I had stated that Stetson Bennett did not belong as one of the invites to the ceremony. And Georgia caller, I wouldn't say he was irate because he was not, but he was adamant that Stetson Bennett was one of the best players in the country, if not the best player in the country. And I got to say that once I got him past his lifetime achievement um, qualifications and tried to focus this guy on it's 2022. I don't believe in lifetime achievement awards. It is a 2022 award. And even if a quarterback was 0-12 or had never completed a pass in his life or was the worst quarterback in the nation in 2021 is completely inconsequential. It's all about what did you do in 2022. So he did bring to light that Stetson Bennett did play his best football in 2022 in the most meaningful games. You know, he was near perfect against Oregon in the opener, 368, 25 for 31, 2 touchdowns. Then I would say the next big game that they played, you know, he played really well against Tennessee, 257, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And then the SEC championship game, he was stellar, 23 to 29, 274, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Just that he played well in their biggest games. So I thought he had a pretty good point there. I would also argue that he's supported by a great offensive line, running game, and the best defense in America.
Yeah, and so, you know, like he certainly did what he needed to do, but he also had that 16-6 game against Kentucky and that 26-22 game against Missouri, in which neither he nor Georgia's offense looked particularly good. And so, you know, there were a lot of ordinary games on the slate. And for Caleb Williams, just as a point of comparison, like Caleb Williams had the clunker against Oregon State. He was below average against Oregon State. That was a bad game for Caleb Williams, but that's it. Like he was decent against Washington State. Wasn't great, but he was decent. Like he was okay. And then the rest of the season, he was turning around these highlight reel plays. And so, you know, in terms of like a 13-game body of work, which, you know, that's what the Heisman's supposed to be, just like ranking teams every week in college football. It is a 13-game body of work. It's not just, you know, you muddle around and you just, you know, you get by and you're barely good enough to win. And then, oh, a few big games in November, you play them well. And, oh, that's your Heisman moment. Make him the Heisman. Like that kind of recency bias, that late season bias, and that championship bias that we've talked about, like being on a college football playoff team. It's not what the Heisman's supposed to be. It's where you be the best player in the year, you know, not just on a couple days, but over the course of a year. And so Caleb Williams, let's remember, against Stanford week 2. And hey, I know Stanford's not a particularly good team, but just to prove the point that back in early September, Caleb Williams was dazzling, and he was still dazzling in the middle of the season, and he was still dazzling at the end of the season. Against Stanford, USC didn't have a single third down on any of its first 5 possessions, scored touchdowns on all 5 possessions. And so, like, this was a journey that went from the beginning to the end. Excellence the whole way, except for that one game in Corvallis. And Stetson Bennett certainly had several Saturdays this season in which he didn't come remotely close to matching that kind of standard. So again, Stetson Bennett, great year, great career. He has his life really set up for him, but like it's not even close in terms of, you know, where he stands in the larger picture of college football. Like if you think that Stetson Bennett was a better player this year than Hendon Hooker and Michael Penix, turn in your football analyst card, please. Turn in your card. You know, we won't fine you, but you have to give up your card and you have to go home and walk through the snow to your home, and you need to have some hot chocolate and get a good night's rest because, like, there's just no comparison. Hendon Hooker took a dormant Tennessee program, lifted it from the ashes, you know, been toiling in mediocrity for a very long time, and finally lifted that program to the next level. Michael Penix takes, you know, this Jimmy Lake, John Donovan disaster at Washington, and with Kalen DeBoer's help, turns the Huskies in 1 year into a 10-2 team. Like those guys were absolutely transformative of their programs, while Stetson Bennett, he fits the mold of a Ken Dorsey. Stetson Bennett is like the modern Ken Dorsey 20 years later, a good, solid, competent quarterback, but who had an NFL combine surrounding him, offense and defense, strong physical line play, the way Dorsey had at Miami, is just able to spread the ball around. He doesn't have to make extraordinary plays. Once in a while, he'll make an extraordinary play, but he doesn't have to do that much. And like Bennett played a great first half against Tennessee, as you noted, but like he didn't have to do anything in the second half. Georgia's defense just kept the Vols on lockdown, and Georgia was basically handing the ball off in the second half. And that kind of thing should go into a Heisman measurement that, in terms of how great a player you are, part of the equation is how much you are asked to do, how much you have to be responsible for your team winning. And so Stetson Bennett just had to be a solid floor general, a solid field general, I should say, just doing the things he absolutely had to do. Caleb Williams, he was Atlas. He was carrying USC on his shoulders the whole season. Hendon Hooker, Michael Penix basically had the same level and scope of responsibility at Tennessee and Washington, respectively. So that gets into a larger discussion of, what marks the best player in college football. In terms of Max Duggan of TCU, he had to shoulder the burden for the TCU offense, but the TCU defense made a lot of very timely plays. Think of the Baylor game when it was 28-20. TCU had to get the late game stop against Baylor to give Duggan the ball back with a chance to win the game. So like when you compare USC and TCU specifically, you will find more moments over the course of 13 games where the TCU defense did more to help out Max Duggan than the USC defense did to help out Caleb Williams. Now the USC defense did save Caleb Williams' bacon against Oregon State. There's no doubt. But in terms of a 13-game collective, there's no doubt that TCU's defense supported Max Duggan more than USC's defense supported Caleb Williams. So it amplifies that, what Caleb Williams did, he was doing it with a comparatively less margin for error, and that should go into our evaluation of the very best player in college football.